Good evening, and welcome to this week's Fireside Chat. I really enjoyed this summer doing waterside chats and then this fall doing lawnside chats. Thanks again to all those people who hosted me. Now that it's darker and colder outside, it's time to be inside again by the fire, which is where that's all started. So thank you for being here tonight, and I hope you and your family are doing well. So tonight I'm not going to talk about the election. If you're like me, you've heard enough election talk, and we know it's probably not going to stop for a long time, so I'm going to leave that there. I also, maybe like you, needed some time to process what's happening before I actually have something to say about it, and also looking ahead to Sunday, regardless of the outcome of the election, I will have I know I'm going to say something about it on Sunday. So what else is there to talk about, if not COVID or the election? Actually, more than you would think. A while ago, a member of our church council, Hannah, recommended to me this little book called Beyond the Gender Binary. And it's part of my continuing to learn about issues within the LGBTQ plus community. And since today I was determined to not watch election coverage, I continued to read this little wonderful book this morning. And this one little part caught my attention. It said, "I have learned that the most lethal part of the human body is not the fist, it is the eye. What people see and how people see has everything to do with power. How we see the world is partly determined by our place in it. How we see other people is often from the vantage point of our own limited experience." I think it's such an important point to make. What do we see when we look at other people? Do we see a person, or do we see a caricature of that person? When we see someone, do we see their history, their pain, their struggle? Or do we see something that makes us uncomfortable and therefore something to be feared or mocked? As people of faith, our first job is always to try to see people through the eyes of God. And as Christians, our job is to try to see it through the eyes of Jesus. So maybe a better question is, what does God see when he sees us? First of all, God sees us deeply. God sees all of us. God sees the good and the bad, the funny and the serious, the contradictions, the pains that we have lived or the shame that we unnecessarily carry. God sees not only what we are, but who we can be. God sees our fears and our hopes. God doesn't see labels that other people put on us. God doesn't see a man or a woman, a black person or a white person, a gay or a straight person, a rich or a poor person. God doesn't see us as citizens or undocumented persons. God sees into our souls beyond all of those labels. But God also sees all those things in the world that affect us. God sees how hard it is to be a person of color in this world. God sees the struggle of those who are non-binary. God sees the fear of a gay person coming out to their family and friends. God sees how injustice of the system weighs down so heavily upon people. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus is teaching his disciples about what it means to live in the kingdom of God. And then he says to them, "Blessed are the eyes that have seen what you see," because they have seen the kingdom of at work in Jesus. They've seen the lame walk, the blind receive their sights, the lepers cleanse, the deaf hear, and Satan fall from the heaven, the dead rise, and the poor who have good news brought to them. They have seen the wonder and beauty of love and action, and they have seen what it means to be merciful. And they have seen Jesus look through outward appearances to what's really going on. When Jesus encountered people, he could see all of that person. For example, when Jesus encounters a woman who had a 12-year blood disease, he saw her suffering, her struggle, her resolve, her faith. That's the God that we know in Jesus, not a God who looks at our outward appearances, but one who looks deep into our souls. There's another story about a young man who was lame from birth, and Jesus' disciples ask him, "Who sinned, this man or his parents?" Jesus looks past what the disciples see to what the man is suffering. That's the God that we know in Jesus. Not one who sees us as injured, but one who looks past that to what we can actually do. One of my all-time favorite stories is the story of Zacchaeus. Everyone looks upon him as a sinner, as a bad person. But when Jesus sees him, he sees a man in need of compassion. That's the God that we know in Jesus. Not a God who judges us for our misdeeds, but one who looks past them to see what's really going on. Of course, not everyone is able to see with those eyes. We allowed our own worldview and our prejudices from stopping us. In Mark's Gospel, after feeding the 4,000, the disciples don't understand what they saw. And Jesus says to them, "Do you have eyes and fail to see?" I feel like Jesus is saying that to us all the time. We have failed to see what God is up to in our lives. We have failed to see God's love poured out for us. We have failed to see God's Spirit in other people. We have failed to see people for who they really are. We have let the world blind us to other people and their pain. I haven't thought of it before, but when we do that, we really do hurt other people. We hurt them by not allowing them to be themselves. We hurt them by telling them that they have to conform to our ideas of how they should be in the world. We hurt them by reinforcing hurtful stereotypes. We hurt them by asserting that we are normal and they are not. I'm realizing more and more how blind I am to other people. There are things that I've learned about what it means to be a person in this world that they're just wrong. And I've learned them through the process of merely inhabiting the world. When I read this book, it was one of the many times when I felt my eyes were open to new possibilities. They were open to a pain in the world that I hadn't seen before. I guess tonight I'm praying that God will continue to open my eyes. I'm praying that I will not fail to see the struggles of my fellow human beings. I hope that I can grow into the kingdom of God where we all are seen in all of our fullness and beauty. I'm praying for all of you who are watching tonight that you too might have eyes to see how Jesus is working in your life. I'm praying for you who are watching that don't feel seen. I'm praying for you who are watching who want to be seen fully. Know that even when other people fail to see you fully, God always does. Just some things I've been thinking about this week. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that maybe through this you've opened your eyes to see things through God's eyes. And until next week, may God continue to bless you.